Yo, a massive $2.3 trillion bank just sent a huge Bitcoin warning to the $300 trillion bond market. What's interesting is that this bank mentioned the MicroStrategy playbook that's eating the bond market is exploding, and that it might be the most unappreciated story of 2025, if you haven't been paying attention, of course. If multi-trillion-dollar banks are catching on to this trend, we're sorry to say, but you might only have a matter of weeks left to get positioned before Bitcoin makes its violent move. I mean, this last conference, you had a sitting vice president, you had CEOs of public companies from all different fields making an appearance at Bitcoin 2025. And what bank are we talking about? It's a big effing deal. We're talking about Wells Fargo. This is one of the largest banks in the United States, and they're seeing in the world, and they're seeing the writing on the wall. They're seeing what all the rest of us are seeing, which is, listen, this Bitcoin strategy is working, right? Michael Saylor's strategy is working. It's the name of his company, right? Anyways, sitting next to me is my legendary co-host Optimus Fields, and from now on, we're going to be doing the show together in person, and we have some surprises for you guys, so stay tuned to Simply Bitcoin. Anyways, let's jump straight into today's news story. Wells Fargo sees rise of companies holding Bitcoin on balance sheet. Wells Fargo says Bitcoin is entering an, quote, institutional phase marked by the emergence of a new category of companies, what is called Bitcoin Treasury Corps, that are using capital markets to amass large Bitcoin holdings. Bitcoin is becoming institutionalized, the firm wrote in a note, pointing to an expanding group of firms that use the capital markets to build Bitcoin holdings. Following the success of Strategy, Wells Fargo highlighted 3 new Bitcoin treasury corporations with political ties: Cantor/Tethers 21, Vivek Ramaswamy's Strive, and David Bailey's Nakamoto. Together, these groups may raise as much as $25 billion. While Coinbase's inclusion in the S&P 500 is seen as a key symbolic milestone, Wells Fargo argued that, quote, the more important in our view is the growing number of Bitcoin treasury corporations being minted. The rise of spot Bitcoin ETFs has also accelerated institutional exposure. ETFs have attracted $136 billion in assets under management just 16 months after launch, including $11 billion in year-to-date inflows to BlackRock's iBit, currently 4th among all ETFs. But Wells Fargo sees even greater impact ahead. Quote, if ETFs are a bridge between capital and Bitcoin, the flow of new Bitcoin treasury corporations may become an even bigger source of assets under management. Strategy, the pioneer in using equity markets to fund a Bitcoin treasury, is setting its sight on the $300 trillion global bond market with STRK and STRF. Wells Fargo believes this effort to tap the $300 trillion global bond market might be the most underappreciated Bitcoin story of 2025. The firm expects more Bitcoin treasury corporations to emerge as long as public markets continue assigning a premium to their Bitcoin holdings. Moving on to an article by Mackenzie Sigalos of CNBC. Saylor's Bitcoin buying strategy is exploding globally, but Wall Street is still skeptical. Kind of a little bit of a different take. It goes on to say, and I believe she was in Vegas, actually. The Bitcoin treasury play that lifted Strategy's market cap past $80 billion is now being mimicked by meme stock companies, media firms, and multinational conglomerates. But Wall Street isn't buying all the hype. This week, Trump Media announced plans to raise $2.5 billion to buy Bitcoin, GameStop, and revealed a $500 million allocation. Meanwhile, Tether, SoftBank, and Strike's Jack Mallers unveiled 21, a Bitcoin native public company expected to launch with more than 42,000 Bitcoin on its balance sheet, enough to make it the 3rd largest corporate holder of the asset globally. For now, the market doesn't see the strategy in any of them. Trump Media shares have dropped more than 20% since the announcement, while GameStop is down nearly 17%. Strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy, has multiplied by 26 times since the end of 2022, amassing a Bitcoin stake worth over $60 billion. Quote, maybe the market wanted them to buy more Bitcoin, said strategy chairman Michael Saylor in an interview at Bitcoin 2025. But these are short-term dynamics. Over the long term, Bitcoin on the balance sheet has proven to be extraordinarily popular. Saylor called Trump's media move courageous, aggressive, and intelligent, and said the floor of similar announcement marks a global shift in corporate finance. Quote, everywhere I go at this conference, someone says, I'm working on a Bitcoin treasury company in Hong Kong. I'm doing this thing in Korea. I've got this thing I'm working on in Abu Dhabi. I'm going to do this thing in the Middle East. We've got this in the UK, he said. There's an explosion of interest right now. Saylor said Bitcoin ambassadors are, quote, planting the orange flag everywhere on Earth. What began as a fringe financial maneuver is quickly becoming a geopolitical race. Under the Biden administration, corporate Bitcoin adoption was often treated as a regulatory red flag. But under President Trump, the tone has changed. In March, Trump signed an executive order establishing a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve, instructing federal agencies to treat Bitcoin as a long-term store of value. The reserve will be funded entirely through Bitcoin seized in criminal and civil forfeiture cases, according to the White House crypto AI czar, David Sachs. The order also empowers the government to explore additional budget-neutral mechanisms for acquiring more Bitcoin. For the first time, the federal government will conduct a full audit of its digital asset holdings, currently estimated at more than 200,000 Bitcoin. The order explicitly prohibits the sale of any Bitcoin from the reserve, cementing its role as a permanent sovereign asset. So, of course, and mentions the speech by Vice President J.D. Vance. And it goes on to say, this week became the first sitting vice president to address the Bitcoin community directly, framing crypto as a hedge against inflation, censorship, and unelected bureaucrats. And a further move to boost Bitcoin, the Department of Labor rolled back guidance that had discouraged Bitcoin investments in retirement plans. Quote, no force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come, Saylor said. Bitcoin is digital capital and may be the most explosive idea of the era. Okay, lots to unpack here. And first of all, we're back. We're back here in South Florida. Of course, Opti's joining me. Starting Mondays off strong. So usually Monday's news cycle is somewhat slow, but today's is on fire and lots to unpack there. First of all, this is crazy. I mean, this Bitcoin treasury strategy it's a global phenomenon, as Saylor pointed out. Everyone is seeing the performance of strategy. Everyone is seeing the performance of MetaPlanet, and they want to copy it. They want to essentially, put Bitcoin on their balance sheets, use the capital markets to raise more money, and kind of do this infinite money glitch and do it over and over again. My first kind of reaction to this is every cycle, there is this thing. There is this kind of like alpha play to outperform Bitcoin. Every cycle, that's the case. What I'm starting to see here is something like, just I'm sure strategy is going to work out. I'm sure 21 is going to work out. I'm sure, David Bailey's Nakamoto is going to work out. But if you have 50 Bitcoin treasury companies, I mean, money doesn't come out of the sky, right? Like, I think eventually one is going to get over leveraged and potentially find itself in a difficult situation. I'm not saying that's the case for Michael Saylor because he had first mover advantage, but like even Trump Media Group, right? Like president's own media company is doing the whole Bitcoin treasury play. Now, of course, this is extremely exciting from a number go up perspective. But again, like we were talking about this on Friday's show during the culture. Like, I feel like Bitcoin, it's out of its cypherpunk type of, rebellion type of aspect and mindset and outlook. And as these articles have pointed out, it's become institutionalized, right? A lot of this Bitcoin, it's saying the federal government has 200,000 Bitcoin. We still haven't seen the audit of that, by the way. That was an executive order by the Trump administration back in January, and we still haven't seen the results of that audit. That's number one. Number two, again, I would like to see proof of reserves. I don't think that's too much to ask as Bitcoiners, right? Like if you say you have the Bitcoin you say you do, I don't come from the public markets. I don't have experience in Wall Street. I'm just a humble Bitcoiner, but I know how Bitcoin works very well. I know Opti knows how Bitcoin works, and you know, El Salvador has proof of reserves. Tether posted their reserve address. Like it can be done, right? I think that would put a lot of fears at bay for a lot of Bitcoiners. A lot of Bitcoiners are saying, like, look, a lot of this Bitcoin is custodied with Coinbase, and you have to essentially take Coinbase's word. And especially with the recent price action that we've seen, Bitcoin has underperformed compared to previous cycles. Like that is undebatable, right? So, that again, that's my opinion. I could totally be wrong here. What I will say from a more positive aspect is the vice president and his framing, right? It's a hedge against inflation, censorship, and unelected bureaucrats. Something that we've been talking a lot about on Simply Bitcoin. Bitcoin empowers you. It gives you the ability to reclaim back your financial sovereignty. And it's crazy that we have a sitting vice president, who's in the executive branch, who's in power right now, basically telling that to the people. Like, look, like this is your way to protect yourself against the state. That's what he's saying, right? Whether that's inflation, whether that's censorship, whether that's the administrative state, the deep state, however you want to call it, the unelected bureaucrat. And he's absolutely right there. So that's a positive. Now, going back to the first article regarding Wells Fargo, this is massive. This is one of the largest banks in the United States, Opti said, in the world. And they're basically admitting, like, hey, guys, there's this huge emergence of Bitcoin treasury companies. Bitcoin is becoming institutionalized. This is the real deal. This is Signal. This isn't going anywhere. This isn't going anywhere, right? They're pointing out Coinbase's inclusion in the S&P 500. The reason that we said that was such a big deal was because, again, anyone who has exposure to the S&P 500 in the form of an index fund now has indirect exposure to Bitcoin, whether they like it or not, right? And again, what happens if you have indirect exposure to Bitcoin, your incentives start to align, right, with Bitcoiners, because no one wants their bags to go down, right? No matter how ideologically bent you are against Bitcoin, you don't want your bags to go down, right? So, Bitcoin is slowly creeping itself in to everywhere: governments, Wall Street, financial institutions. This is the game theory. This was inevitable. This was always going to happen. Number go up is a hell of an incentive, right? And we've seen every single person eventually bow down to the king. One, inevitably, right? Inevitably, people bow down to the king. You had Jamie Dimon admit a week ago that, JP Morgan, I think that was a Chase, I believe, is going to allow their clients to buy Bitcoin. And he kind of like dragged his feet on it. He said, like, look, I think it's still a terrible idea, but we're going to do it. Why is he doing that? Is he doing that out of the goodness of his heart? No, of course he's not doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He's doing that because he doesn't want his clients to go to another bank that is offering their clients the ability to buy Bitcoin, right? This is what I mean by incentives, right? This is why Bitcoin is going to win fundamentally down the road. Its incentives are superior to everything else. And that's what that's what I want you guys to understand. It's not a question of will Bitcoin win, will number go up. It's a question of when, and it's a question of how long will it take, and what is that bumpy road going to look like. But its inevitability is there. I mean, we've been saying this. I've been saying this since at least 2016, 2017. It happened a whole lot sooner than I anticipated. But yeah, this is the game theory playing out. No one can resist Bitcoin's incentives. And this is why we are here right now. Anyways, Opti, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 1,500 of you guys watching live between YouTube and X. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos. Right now on YouTube, we have 69 likes. Make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 100 likes within the first 30 minutes of the show. Opti, what's your take on this, my friend?
Yeah, first off, everyone on YouTube, smash the like button right now so that we can get back into the algos, because the 3 days off is definitely wrecking us right now. All right.
Well, to be fair, we weren't off.
Yeah. I mean, on Yeah, you already know. You already know. We didn't take a break. It just wasn't posted here, and they don't know. Anyways, the Wells Fargo news I think is huge. Now, obviously, everyone in the chat is kind of leaning into this idea that Bitcoin treasury companies are essentially, the shit coins of the cycle, which we don't disagree with. Obviously, Nico kind of put the caveat there that this is probably not going to last forever. And even though I think Saylor has his financials in check, it seems from the last time that I heard, he, all of his debt isn't, completely full degen over leverage. I think he said he could essentially power through very big dips and for probably like 4 years or something like that. So I'm pretty sure Saylor has structured his debt in a way where he's never going to blow up. But I think other people that are following this strategy might not understand the full financial engineering that Saylor is doing. And so I think there will be a possibility.
Well, to be fair, they're not Saylor.
Well,
Right?
of course,
like Saylor is let's be frank here. Like Saylor's a genius. All right, that man is a genius. And the way that he's been able to essentially take advantage of the capital markets in order to essentially raise money using cheap debt in order to buy more Bitcoin. Therefore, the stock price of MicroStrategy goes up. Therefore, kind of rinse and repeating that. Like, not everyone is Michael Saylor. Like, there's a reason Michael Saylor is Michael Saylor. There's a reason Strategy is the number one Bitcoin treasury company. Good luck anyone trying to catch up, right? Jack Mallers is incredibly smart, and so is David Bailey. I'm not trying to take that away from them, but Michael Saylor has that first mover advantage. These copycats aren't Michael Saylor, and for these copycats to compete with Michael Saylor, they might have to cut corners in order to try to accumulate Bitcoin. And then that's when you might find yourself in some of these Bitcoin treasury companies over leveraged. And over leverage is not a problem as long as the bull market is humming. Remember, FTX or any of these like Celsius or any of these companies, they didn't collapse until the price of Bitcoin collapsed. Everyone is partying when the number is going up. Like, you pay the piper when the price goes down, not before. When the price dips 50, 60%, show me what Bitcoin companies are there. Show me what Bitcoin companies are resilient, because those are the companies that are meant to last, right? In a bull market, it's a party, right? We're currently in a bull market. I still think we have a couple more months left of this bull market, maybe a year, maybe 12 months.
There.
But then, we might have a correction. Shout out to the audience, by the way, 150 people watching live. Someone in the chat, UTXO, Nico's portfolio is 200% USTU. I don't even know what USTU
MSTU.
Albin Einstein, does Nico sleep with his fear and loathing glasses? Why do you call them that? These are blue blockers. These lights are crazy.
Yeah, they're killing us. All right. Anyways, Nico. So that point stated, I think the biggest signal, and they said it here, and I think when you read that Yahoo article, I think a lot of people read it as, the Bitcoin treasury companies is the most underappreciated story of 2025. And, as someone that's in Bitcoin, and of course, all you guys that are watching this show, it's probably the biggest news story amongst Bitcoiners. It's all the rage right now. And I was saying on Friday when we came back on YouTube that a lot of the conversations that I was hearing around the conferences, so many people being orange pilled because of Saylor. And of course, on the stage, there was all the talk about Bitcoin treasuries. It's the newest narrative around Bitcoin. But I think the real signal here, and it's something we've kind of been covering the last couple of weeks, or rather the last week or two, is this idea of Bitcoin essentially drinking the bond market's milkshake. And we're seeing right now that there is a lot of uncertainty in the bond markets, and people are trying to figure out a new risk-off investment. And obviously, Bitcoin is still early in that process. But I think the fact that Wells Fargo is stating that Bitcoin will eat into the $300 trillion bond market, obviously referencing Michael Saylor, I think that's a huge signal of what's to come. Again, we're still, I would say, in the early stages of Bitcoin going mainstream. But I think if we know anything from this conference, it feels like Bitcoin is finally going mainstream. And the fact that we're having the banks, and I know we're huge separation of money and state type people, the 2008 bailout was in the Genesis block. we're not necessarily here cheering on the fact that the banks are trying to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, but we are acknowledging that they're seeing the problem. I am fully convinced that the Jamie Dimons of the world know exactly what's going on, and they're looking for an alternative. Again, it is no coincidence that Jamie Dimon last week was like, actually, if you want this Bitcoin thing, we'll sell it to you, because they are forced to. They are starting to have to give the people what they want, which is, of course, Bitcoin, or rather something that gives more returns than treasuries, of course, real estate, of course, equities, unless you're buying Bitcoin exposure equities. There is a new game in town, and Bitcoin is showing up. Bitcoin is maturing. Bitcoin is going to be the new kid on the block, or rather it is the new kid on the block, but it's going to be, the shining superstar on the block, because there's a problem right now. And of course, they can kick the can down the road. But as we've been hearing from the Trump administration, it's about $4 trillion that they're planning on printing here soon. So all that liquidity is going to have to find somewhere to basically rest itself. Yes, it could go to repo markets, but if you're going to see all this liquidity resting in repo markets and only get, couple percentage returns, you have to be convinced that most of that is going to eventually get into Bitcoin. And then that's when the real game starts to get played, is once this really deep pockets start to realize, hey, I need to go into Bitcoin, because not only is it the safest thing to be holding, but it's going to give me the returns that I want. And of course, everyone's chasing that dopamine. Everyone's chasing that high of getting some good trades. And of course, preserving their purchasing power, rather, multiplying their purchasing power here. And I think this is what we're seeing, Nico.
Yeah, 100%. I think every cycle, there's like an alpha, right? So the 2017 cycle, which me and Opti, that's the class that we came from. It was the ICOs, right? The ICOs were all the buzz. Everyone wanted to get into the ICO. You get pre-ICO before it got listed on an exchange, and you'd be able to outperform Bitcoin. In theory, most people got wrecked. Then the second cycle, this 2021 cycle, was the layer one altcoins and the NFTs, and that was essentially what outperformed Bitcoin. Ethereum, I think, as well. It outperformed Bitcoin, of course, in the short term, right? And then I think that this cycle's Bitcoin outperformance move is these Bitcoin treasury companies. Now, I think the reason that it's taken a lot of people by surprise is because it's outside of the so-called Bitcoin and crypto ecosystem, and it's more so within the traditional financial system. And I think that's why a lot of people are just like, hey, like, this is kind of strange. This is kind of weird. But I think that this cycle, if there is a blow off top, if there is kind of like this mania phase, I think this is going to be the driving force. Now, does that mean that MicroStrategy or 21 or Nakamoto are going to blow up? I don't think so. Why? Because they got very favorable terms. Like, Michael Saylor wouldn't, like, Bitcoin would have to go to such a low price for him to even be in any type of trouble. Like, you're talking about, 10K, 15K Bitcoin, right? And potentially even that. And he could probably even still shoulder it through because his company has cash flow, right? But a lot of these new upcoming Bitcoin treasury companies, I'm calling it right now, and I'm not going to name any of them by name. I don't even know a lot of them, right? I think some of them are going to cut corners in order to try to accumulate Bitcoin, in order for them to try to compete with MicroStrategy, right? Like, first mover advantage is a very big deal. And the fact is that MetaPlanet had first mover advantage in Japan. Strategy had first mover advantage in the United States. Jack Mallers plus Tether 21 coming in second place. Then Nakamoto, David Bailey's coming in third place. Like, every company that follows them, they're going to have less favorable terms to borrow money. And that's when the corners start to get cut. And all it takes is a 30, 40% drawdown, and one of these companies to be over leveraged. And then you'll start to see potentially a domino effect, right? I've seen this before. Like, I've been doing this for a while now, and it just seems like this is the alpha play of this cycle, of the 2025 cycle. It's the Bitcoin treasury companies. That's how you outcompete Bitcoin. But again, if it were that easy, there would be 1,000 Bitcoin treasury companies, right? So, let's see how this plays out. Maybe I'm totally wrong here. This is kind of going outside my area of expertise. I'm a Bitcoiner at heart. I don't really deal with traditional financial markets. I've been kind of forced to because Bitcoin is becoming institutionalized, and you have to learn these things in order to hold good conversations with some of your guests or talk about these subjects. But I am a little bit skeptical. And by the way, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Svetsky basically was making the same argument not too long ago. It's like, look, guys, come on now, what's going on here? So yeah, I still think MicroStrategy is a great investment. I still think a lot of these companies are great investments. I still think if Bitcoin goes up 100%, MicroStrategy would probably go up 200%, right? So it's not taking away from those companies and them as an investment. What I'm saying is the copycats, I think they're going to cut corners, and they're not Michael Saylor, right? They're not David Bailey. They're not Jack Mallers, right? They're copycats, right? And I think they're going to cut corners, and they might take more. They might take more leverage, and they might take more kind of irresponsible loans and whatnot. So anyhow, TLDR, massive news. Wells Fargo covering this, basically saying, listen, guys, this is a big deal. This is here to stay. Wells Fargo, one of America's largest banks, just admitted to the world that Bitcoin is becoming institutionalized. As Bitcoiners, me and Opti, we're listen, buy Bitcoin, stay humble, stack sats, put it in cold storage. It's a little bit bittersweet, is it not? It's a little bit bittersweet. I'm not going to lie to you. But again, just for their all overall movement, I think it's bullish from a number go up perspective. Anyways, before we get into the rest of today's show, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, guys. We wouldn't be here without our sponsors. So I do want to give a shout out, of course, to the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Buy real Bitcoin. Enable your independence with Bitcoin Well. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/simply. You get an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats just by using that URL when you're signing up. You get 3 opportunities, actually. And by the way, if you're a higher net worth individual and you want a white glove, hold your hand service, walking you through self-custody, walking you through buying Bitcoin. If you don't want to buy Bitcoin using a UI, you want to call someone, you want to text someone, you want a dedicated representative, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. And by the way, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points. And you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're going to be doing live for you guys right now on air. Get your Lightning wallets ready. We're going to toss a coin into the Wishing Well, and bam, bing, bam, boom. The prize today is 593 Satoshis. Anyways, guys, we have a hell of a show lined up for you guys. We have Lawrence Lepard predicting $7 million Bitcoin. Absolutely bullish. And some more geopolitical news as it relates to Bitcoin. Again, this is going to continue to heat up. We've been telling you guys since the previous election, since November, we've been telling you guys that, hey, guys, listen, Bitcoin has crossed the Rubicon. It's becoming mainstream. It's being talked about in the mainstream lexicon, right? It's being taught. It's on people's consciousness. People are talking about this. And again, the more and more people adopt Bitcoin, the more and more people opt out of the legacy system. And by definition, that is political. There's people that are going to push back against that. The people that are pro fiat, pro CBDCs, pro government, top down control. And the people that are pro freedom are going to be pro Bitcoin. So by definition, it was an inevitability that Bitcoin was going to get political. So we're going to be covering this. This is a worldwide movement. Who's pro Bitcoin? Who's winning what election? What government is anti-Bitcoin? And that's going to empower you to make the right decision, because we have a worldwide audience. We know our demographics. So we're going to let you guys know, what countries suit you best. If you're a Bitcoiner, what countries you can move to, right? So we're going to be covering all that during the news segment. And then, of course, more news coming out of Russia. Russia's central bank is essentially allowing more crypto derivatives, apparently. So yes, just global news. This is becoming a global show. Could never have imagined this when Opti and I first started this. It was like we were in a bunker, bro. We were like trying to survive. Now we're thriving. and it's good to see. Anyways, guys, let's get to the numbers segment. We will be right back in just a second. We're going to talk about Larry Lepard talking about a potential $7 million Bitcoin. We'll be back in just 1 second. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. I don't know why it's because I had this maximized. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $104,380. Block height 899,519. Sats per dollar 958. Market cap 2.07 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 8.7%. Percentage issued 94.63%. Decline from all-time high negative 6.8%. Realized monetary inflation sitting at 0.85%. Grand scheme of things, Bitcoin continues to take fiat currencies to absolute school. Anyways, here's a clip of Larry Lepard, the man, the myth, the legend, talking about $7 million Bitcoin. I'm going to play it, and then me and Opti are going to talk about it.
I think we're easily, in 5 years' time, we're easily at kind of 300, 500, something like that. But if it, you could get a swing where it just goes much, much higher than that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's entirely possible that we have a, oh, here we go. Yeah, it's on page 293 for anyone following along with me. So the 5-year power line model shows the trend line in 5 years, and this was from last year, so maybe you'd have to move it up a little bit from this. 5 years would be at 326,000. But this is interesting. One standard deviation up is 667,000. Two standard deviations up is 1,853,000. And by the way, Bitcoin has traded at 2 standard deviations above its trend line mean, many times. So not many times, but in each cycle. I think there've been 5 of them. And then 1 standard deviation down is 180. So, in 5 years, I mean, I could easily see it be $500,000. In 10 years, the trend line is $1 million. So that would $1.1 million actually. So that and the 1 standard deviation up is 2.2 and 2 is 6 million. Now, typically if you look at it historically, and 2 standard deviations above the trend line, it doesn't generally stay there for very long. It spikes up, as we all know, and then it corrects. So, but in 20 years, the trend line is 7 million. So, I mean, these are some big numbers, and that's what happens when you compound something out over, year after year. I mean, it is a scarce asset, and there is a large amount of fiat money that's going
in
to
2
move
miles,
into it
continue onto Ohio Turnpike west toward
how scarce
Cleveland.
it really is. And, I'm sure you're familiar, it's in the book too, Jesse Meyer's chart on, the total available market. There's $9 trillion, there are $9 trillion of fiat things out there, if you include real estate, 900 trillion.
So in 1 mile, take a left. That's crazy. That was
We're going to Cleveland, boys.
That was part of the recording. Uncle Larry dropping the hot fire. Uncle Larry, dude. Uncle Larry's wisdom, man. I love Larry Lepard. Big fan. Check out his new book, The Big Print. And just dropping the sauce like Larry always does. But yeah, I mean, look, I completely agree. 3 to 5 years, we'll see 300,000, 500,000 Bitcoin. That I think is a minimum. I do want to give a shout out to the live stream today. 2,300 people watching live. 400 people watching live on Rumble. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos. Appreciate all y'all. Love you all. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. If you guys want to support the show even more, check out our partners. We're very, very picky on who we choose to partner with, and they'll all help you on your Bitcoin journey. Anyhow, Opti, what's your take on this, my friend, bro? Because first of all, are we going to Cleveland? Is that what's happening, bro?
Yeah, Cleveland's the new moon, apparently. Yeah, well, look. Everyone in the chat, everyone in the Rumble chat is saying it is never going to these prices, that we need to calm down. We have our favorite Cash Maxi in the chat saying that we're idiots to think Bitcoin's going to the millions. But I think when you really break it down, there's two data points, or rather two people kind of saying very similar things. Obviously, Larry says 7 mil in 20 years. I honestly think that is very, very, very conservative price considering where things are going. If we go to a million, I don't know, this next cycle, a lot of people are saying this. Literally, I was talking to Luke this morning, and he pretty much said, like, it's game over in 3 years. And I'm like, what? Like $1 million Bitcoin? He's like, no, like $10 million Bitcoin. You see all this news happening, and I'm like, yo, like, now you're really, really smoking that hopium. That seems far-fetched. And he's like, the amount of Bitcoin on the exchanges, once it gets wiped out, we will find out the true price of Bitcoin, and then it starts to teleport. And I do agree with that framing, but 3 years, I think he's a little ahead of schedule here. But 20 years down the line, 7 million doesn't seem that far off. It honestly seems kind of conservative at that point. And then again, if you guys watch the Arthur Hayes clip at the Bitcoin conference, he's basically saying, $1 million in roughly 3-4 years. Like he basically said the math is easy. The math is very easy to get to $1 million Bitcoin here. So in 20 years, I know 7 million right now sounds crazy, but also in the early days of Bitcoin, 100K sounded crazy. And yet here we are, and we're already, we have the perma bear next to me always talking about, like, why would the price go up? I think 7 mil in 20 years is a pretty conservative bet here. I'm totally convinced we are going into the tens of millions of dollars here. And, the numbers that Larry's talking about, yes, he's talking kind of about wicks and stuff, but he basically said in 20 years, 7 million is like the median price here. So it'll be higher than that, and it might be lower than that, but it's going to range around 7 mil. I really don't think that that's crazy a prediction. Again, as the saying goes, you overestimate what you can do in 2 years, but you underestimate what you can do in 10 years. And I think we're all kind of thinking this in terms of the price of Bitcoin, because with the law of big numbers, we don't know how high this is going. We don't know how much money they're going to be printing. All we know is 21 million hard capped if Bitcoin can survive. And I really think this is kind of part of the trend right now. A lot of people are talking about, is Bitcoin being attacked? Is the spam going to blow up Bitcoin? And, the mempools are empty. I think, Bitcoiners are very quick to go into panic mode. But 7 mil in 20 years, I really don't think that that's crazy, Nico.
No, not crazy at all, man. I think it's totally reasonable. By the way, I do want to give a shout out to the show today. 2,400 people live between YouTube and X, and another 400 or so watching live on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We love all these platforms, YouTube, X, and Rumble. We love these platforms. It allows us to get the message out there. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, there's 148 likes. Make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 200 likes by the time we wrap up the show. I want to go through some of the comments because they've been getting savage. We got Nicholas. He says, getting way ahead of ourselves. We got Elaine, Opti being bearish. It's cute. Ooh, Elaine. I love that comment by Elaine. Let's check out some of these other comments. The biggest of big boy fighting over a scarce commodity has always meant much lower prices. Gear Rich says, I need Bitcoin a nuke to 60K so I could load up. A 58K skag still going. Yes, 58K is still alive and well until we're out of the trenches. Anyway, dude, I love these little like Bitcoin thing. That's awesome. Anyways, guys, it's gonna be a hell of a show. We still have lots of news to cover today. There was an election in Poland, and the pro Bitcoin candidate, we're not going to talk about all the other stuff, but a pro Bitcoin candidate did win the election. There's going to be a continuation, guys. Unfortunately, look, it is the way it is. All right. The midterms that's happening in 2026, they're going to matter. They're going to matter. The 2028 election, it's going to matter. Elections worldwide where they have pro Bitcoin candidates, they're going to matter. I tell you guys, there's two futures ahead of us. There's the future of Bitcoin and the continuation of fiat currencies, which are central bank digital currencies, right? So you're going to have a choice between those two futures, and obviously politicians are going to back one or the other, right? That's the reality, right? We have Elizabeth Warren, right? Elizabeth Warren in the United States, despite the result of this previous election, she still wants CBDCs. You saw how she was on the floor of the Senate when the Genius Act was being passed. I was watching it like a sports game. Senator Lummis was on the floor, and on the other side was Senator Warren, right? Like, it was crazy. So all of this stuff is incredibly important, and we're going to keep you up to date with all this stuff. And if it's your country, get out. And I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. Get out and vote. Get out and vote.
You already said it.
As a collective voting block, Bitcoiners, our voting block is going to continue to get bigger and bigger. We will have more influence. And again, unless you want to just keep running away to different jurisdictions, right, that it will treat you favorably, eventually you're going to have to hold the line and say, you know what? I'm going to vote for the pro Bitcoin person, right? We're not going to talk about all the other social issues and political issues because that's not this type of show. So anyways, guys, smash the like button. We're going to be right back in the news segment. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, and we'll be right back in just a second. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io. I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store. All right, everybody, I'm here with Opti. Guys, go get yourself a Cold Card. You can use promo code SIMPLY. It is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market right now. Opti doesn't have it. We're actually, you know what? Hold on a second.
He's getting it out of his backpack, apparently. He's still getting it out of his backpack, apparently. He's struggling. Is that the one you just opened?
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is the Cold Card Q. It has an A to Z keyboard. It's incredibly easy to use. This one has batteries in it, so I could turn it on for you guys. Check this out. Boom. It's turning on. I think, Cold, look at that. Beautiful.
Can't see the screen. You can't see it.
You put in your pin in, and it's
Still can't see it.
yeah, it's a little dark. Anyways, guys, this is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. You can scan to sign. You could tap to sign. You could put it in USB. It's awesome. Get yourself a Cold Card Q. Head over coinkite.com. Use promo code simply. Get 5% off anything on their website. Anyways, let's get to today's news. Poland. And again, guys, you guys know the deal. You guys know the 101. You guys know the pizzazz. You guys know what's going on here. We're not going to cover any of the other political issues until we have to. But until then, we're just going to cover what is happening. That's pro Bitcoin. So nationalist candidate backs crypto in tight Polish presidential race. Poland's nationalist candidate Karol Nawrocki has pledged to support the cryptocurrency industry if he wins a tightly contested presidential election on Sunday. Speaking in a short video posted on X, Nawrocki said that he will reject any regulations aimed at curbing the freedom of investing. The candidate, backed by the opposition Law and Justice Party, admitted that he doesn't invest in digital currencies. Poland needs to be a place where innovation is created, not regulation. Nawrocki said on Wednesday, as the Polish president, I will guarantee that no murderous regulations will be implemented that will limit your freedom. Nawrocki is running neck and neck with Warsaw Mayor Rafał these last names are crazy. Czarorowski. Thank you, Opti. You should have just said that. Just days before a tight election slated for June 1st. His support for cryptocurrencies is an attempt to lure supporters of far-right candidate Mensen, who got 14.8% of votes in the first round of the ballot and is known for holding Bitcoins. In February, how do you say it? Czarorowski told a rally that he's against regulating the cryptocurrency market in Poland. Now, really interesting here, by the way, this candidate was officially elected president. He got the majority of the vote. We found this out last night. So we have a pro-Bitcoin president in Poland, which I think is a big deal. Now, again, there's no conspiracies, but there's no coincidences. This is actually the pro-Trump candidate, right? So again, is it a coincidence that the pro-Trump candidate is also pro-Bitcoin? No, it's not a coincidence. So yeah, I mean, very bullish overall. If you live in Poland, good, great. You get a pro-Bitcoin president or pro-Bitcoin prime minister. I don't know how it works over there. But yeah, it's pretty bullish overall. Next piece of news. Russian central bank lets financial firms offer crypto derivatives to qualified investors. Russia's central bank announced that financial institutions are now allowed to offer qualified investors financial derivatives, securities, and digital financial assets linked to cryptocurrency prices. The announcement marks an important step in Russia's ongoing effort to relax crypto regulations for domestic investors. Still, the move is limited. The Bank of Russia stated in its Wednesday announcement that its condition for allowing such offerings is they must be non-deliverable, meaning investors gain exposure to cryptocurrency price movements, but not the actual digital assets. Quote, credit institutions are advised to apply a conservative approach to assessing the risks associated with these instruments, provided for their full coverage with capital and set individual limits on them, the central bank said, adding that it will provide further guidance on such risks this year. Following the announcement, Sberbank, Russia's largest state-owned bank, said it is planning to launch structured bonds with yields tied to crypto prices. The Moscow exchange also plans to introduce a new cash-settled Bitcoin futures contract on its derivatives market this June. Separately, the PB Exchange revealed its roadmap to offer cryptocurrency-linked futures trading. Meanwhile, the Bank of Russia submitted a proposal to the country's government in March to launch an experimental regime that allows crypto transactions for highly qualified investors. The bank and the finance ministry are also developing a crypto exchange exclusively for the limited number of investors. So I don't like the whole kind of gatekeeping based on, if you're a specific type of investor and this and this and that. But what I'm trying to point out here with just these articles, all these articles just broke, they're recent, right? Is that this Bitcoin thing isn't just a phenomenon happening in the United States. This last election of Donald Trump and his victory sent shockwaves all across the world and essentially put a rubber stamp of approval on Bitcoin as a government asset, as an institutional asset, and as an asset for individuals to own. And this is a game theory. This is a game theory playing out in real time. This is a global phenomenon. This is happening everywhere. This is happening in LATAM. This is happening in Africa. This is happening in Euro-Asia. This is happening in North America. So the Bitcoin train don't stop. We're winning. This is insane. This is what winning looks like, right? I agree with what you were saying earlier, man. With all this news, I got to say this one more time before I pass it on to Opti. In all my years in Bitcoin, I have never seen such a bullish cycle. I mean, this would have made my job 100 times easier back in the day. Because back in the day, we had little breadcrumbs of oh my God, bro, you see this government, they might adopt Bitcoin. You didn't have full on announcements of this, right? This wasn't happening. And it is happening now. And it's a big effing deal. This shows you that we are winning. We're winning big. We're winning massively. And again, I think it's just a matter of time before the price catches up with the news because the fundamentals are there. Remember, when Bitcoin was at 109,000 in the beginning of the year, Trump's inauguration day, which is higher than what it is right now, 6 months ago, basically, we didn't have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The hash rate wasn't as high as it is right now. You didn't have the announcement of 2 extra Bitcoin treasury companies, right? So the price was higher, but the fundamentals now are stronger. Where do you think it's going to go, right? Where do you think it's going to go? I think during Trump's last term, these next 4 years, these next 3 years and a half, really, I think we're going to see Bitcoin reach heights that people couldn't even have imagined, couldn't have even have dreamed of. That's my humble opinion, bro. I might be wrong here, but that's what I think. Someone's making fun of my tracksuit. This is my Real Madrid jersey, bro. I'm wearing my Real Madrid jersey. It's not a tracksuit. It's like a track sweater, I think. But yeah, man, someone in the chat saying we are the new 1%. You got to stay humble, bro. I don't own any Bitcoin. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's check out some of this. People are saying Nico said crypto, not Bitcoin. Poland is still in the EU.
Rip.
Opti's ex is still head of the ECB until she leaves for the WEF.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Bitcoiners need to make voting honest again. Nico, do you think? Oh my God, the Rumble chat is hardcore, bro. I'm just gonna put Bitcoin emojis in the Rumble chat. Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Opti? I think people are overly bearish, bro. In my opinion.
And by most people, you mean yourself.
Sure.
First of all, touching on the Poland news. Poland's looking like a good place to live now, I guess. We'll see what he actually pulls through. Obviously, it's becoming very clear, and I think Elaine said it in the chat best, and we've been saying this for a long time. If you want to get elected now, you have to be pro-Bitcoin. We've seen what it did for Trump. We're seeing what's going on in Poland. We're seeing that this narrative spin here by politicians that embracing innovation, freedom, etc., by embracing Bitcoin, it's obviously a trend that people want to hear. Like, this is what people want to hear. We're tired of hearing all this stuff about we're all bad and, they're going to drop a CBDC on us and a digital ID. They need to get us in a database to control everything and protect us from, some boogeyman. Now we're seeing, hey, people want freedom. People want to use a money that isn't stealing from us. This is like the biggest issue that everyone was talking about in the US election. I'm guessing it's a huge conversation in the EU that we're all getting poorer. Inflation is taking our lunch. Groceries are more expensive. I don't know if you guys saw the metric, but there's, I believe it was 30% more sellers in houses than there are buyers. Like, no one's being able to buy a house. Everyone's trying to offload their houses. Like, the economic situation right now is getting bad for everyone. So this is the defining conversation. I actually saw a good tweet today, and I was talking about it last week, of just Bitcoiners being bad at orange pilling, because we go into the facts and the figures and, the Fed and the creature from Jekyll Island and, all the intricacies about Bitcoin. But in reality, people just want to make sure that they aren't going broke. They want to have some freedom. They want to have a life again. And I think we're starting to see the trend play out. Obviously, we saw it in Poland. We see it in the U.S. Now, whether these politicians are lying or they can actually follow through, I think is a totally different conversation. But we're seeing that people do want this because, hey, it's getting people elected. So the more they lean into these narratives, the more it becomes true that you have to embrace Bitcoin to become a politician, or rather to get into power. And I think this is a great, great trend. Now, on the Russian news, I think this is huge. We've been talking about bit bonds for a long time. And now we're seeing that, hey, look, if Russia is embracing this, obviously only for accredited investors, that's, a kind of a bad caveat, but it does seem to be the norm for what's going on in Russia. Every time they talk about Bitcoin, or rather cryptocurrencies, they always say, either high net worth individuals or accredited investors. They're not fully yet allowing, the plebeians to get into Bitcoin, but I think it's only a matter of time. And if we see the US follow suit or follow the Russian central bank, I think in the U.S. we will see a more laissez-faire kind of free market view of this, because in America, obviously, we have a different culture here where they can't just do it for a small portion of the population, the rich or the billionaires or the high net worth individuals, because then the left and the right will both get up and get angry, and that's just never going to go through. So if we're seeing the Russian central bank do this, I think it's only a matter of time till we see the US and China and all of the big powers of the world essentially follow suit. Now, an interesting tidbit about what this, structured bond tied to Bitcoin means. I have here, actually, I'll pull it up for you guys so you guys can read it as well. This is from the Bloomberg terminal here. And you can see what it actually kind of covers. So initially available over the counter to a limited pool of qualified investors, the bonds let holders earn based on two variables: the future performance of Bitcoin in US dollars and any strengthening of the dollar relative to the ruble. And of course, they won't have to open a Bitcoin wallet or using foreign crypto exchanges, with all transactions being processed in rubles within Russia's legal and infrastructure system. Now, tying this all the way back into the beginning, I think this is the greater trend we're seeing. Again, this goes into what we've been talking about here on Simply Bitcoin and what Bitcoiners have been talking about on Twitter, that we're all macro experts now. It's becoming very clear that these banks, these institutions, nation states, they all have to find an alternative to the status quo. Now, we've seen what the ECB has done in regards to the framing around CBDCs. It's usually, better payments technology. We've seen how even the US is pushing that through with stablecoins. It's usually about better payments. But in reality, it's about a better store of value. It's about a better money. No one wants treasuries right now. No one trusts government debt at this moment. And now we're seeing the various different financial engineering to get Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And of course, I think this is going to be huge for number go up. If we see the biggest institutions in the world start stacking Bitcoin, exposing their customers to Bitcoin, obviously we want you guys to take Bitcoin into custody here. But it just grows that the growing demand for Bitcoin, the growing appetite for Bitcoin is increasing. And we are entering that maturing phase. I think we are, and this is what I kind of want to talk about here in the culture following up. I think we are getting out of the early adopters phase of Bitcoin, and we might even be out of the early innovators. I think we are starting the very beginning of the early majority here. And I got some stats here and some vibes checks.
I think we are definitely at the early majority stage. I don't think we're no longer at the innovator stage. We were definitely at the early majority stage. Do you have an S curve that we can show everybody? So
yeah. Here, just go to the next one and I'll pull it up.
So we'll be right back in just a second. We're gonna talk. We're gonna hit the culture segment, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll be back in just a second. Stay tuned. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledin has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledin is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledin.io today.
Alrighty then. Okay, guys. So I was actually, Nico and I were talking about this on Friday, and it seems like more people are feeling something similar. Like, if you didn't go to the conference, you know, you could sit at home and you can. Wait.
I see a comment. I wish Strike wasn't a 50. Hey, that's what you should head over to Ledin, bro. They have $500 minimums on Bitcoin collateralized loans and much more favorable terms, by the way. And if you use the link, you get 0.25% off your first loan. So go to ledin.io, who's been actually issuing loans for the last 6 years, if you want the best Bitcoin collateralized loan service provider that doesn't require 50K minimums. They could do all the way down to $500. Just saying.
Great plug.
Just saying. I'm just seeing someone in the chat.
Great plug. Okay. As I was saying, we were talking about this, and of course, if you're at home, it's very easy to kind of just throw eggs at the Bitcoin conference. But when you're there, and I was having a few conversations, basically with just a whole Simply Bitcoin team when we were leaving, we all kind of had this vibe that's like, wow, it does seem that we are going more mainstream, that there's a whole new audience kind of coming through the door. And part of it was, guys, I'm not going to lie, like there was more women at the Bitcoin conference. So that's like my heuristic here. But we have Alex Thorne and Pete Rizzo saying something similar that the whole team was saying. We were kind of chatting about it last week. I know we did the article about has Bitcoin lost its cypherpunk roots? Are we going mainstream? It feels like we are going a bit mainstream now.
Dude, regardless, Ledin goes down to $500, bro. $500, more favorable terms.
Nico's arguing with the chat.
Go to ledin.io if you want the best Bitcoin collateralized loans.
Okay. All right. Here you have Alex Thorne's tweet here. And this is more just a vibe check, guys. This is just kind of where we are. We're, the temperature of where we are. And he goes, I've attended all of the Bitcoin conference since 2019. And the first one, in 2019's old car dealership to 2025 Las Vegas at the Venetian. And this year felt like a watershed moment with 35K attendance. Bitcoin actually felt mainstream. Are we finally at the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end? And Pete Rizzo goes, end of the beginning, officially no longer early. And someone goes here, 100 million users versus 8 billion people. We're still early. Now, an interesting metric that I saw here is this pulling up. I actually didn't catch this at the conference. So shouts out to Marty Bent, and he did reflections on Bitcoin 2025. He kind of highlighted some of the key speeches, maybe some that you didn't get or didn't watch and that you should check out. But this is the most interesting fact out of this whole thing to me that I completely missed. And so shouts out to Marty Bent. And he goes, Bitcoin's mathematical destiny. And they kind of talk about the path towards 1 million. Again, you know, Adam Back, Arthur Hayes are both saying the path to $1 million is easy. The math is simple. It's going there. A lot of people are being bearish. No, it's never going to go there. No, it's never going to get there except for, you know, in 10 years. But when you really compare the total global assets to Bitcoin, it's a tiny speck on that market, and it's only going to continue to grow. Of course, in the beginning, we have Wells Fargo saying Bitcoin is eating the $300 trillion bond market. If it gets to $300 trillion, I don't even know what that math is. Someone do the quick math in the chat for me. But here is the quote that I think is absolutely insane here. And we have, who is this? Sean Bill. And he goes, the institutional wave is just beginning.
That's $15 million. Coin.
15 million a coin if we get the 300 trillion. And crazy. Win. Bear. He can't help but be bear. All right, here's the metric. Okay. Jesus. Okay. He goes, Sean revealed that while 50% of hedge fund managers personally own Bitcoin, only 3% have allocated institutional funds. I repeat, from his research, 50% of hedge fund managers personally own Bitcoin, but they've only allocated 3% of their institutional funds. Guys, this is going up insane. That's a good. Essentially, guys, just going down to you need to be stacking. Get your Bitcoin position now because you do not want to miss out. I'm convinced it's going to start ripping soon. And here's the S curve that Nico was talking about where we'll kind of speculate. The first 2.5% are innovators. The next 10% is early adopters. The next 40% is early majority. The last 40% is late majority. And at the very top of the S curve is the last 10% that are laggards. Now, I think for a while we've been in this like early adopters, innovators phase, but I think we can safely say we are entering or at the very beginning of this climb for the early majority. Now, I wish I have one where we can, overlay the Bitcoin price on this. And, if you really zoom in here a little bit, this S-curve adoption of Bitcoin is where it really starts to get fun. And I know a lot of us think it's going to kind of go like this, like, the rainbow chart, and Bitcoin's going to just kind of top out up here. I think we're highly underestimating just how huge the early majority stage of Bitcoin will be. I think the best returns are still to come, Nico. I can't be convinced otherwise. There's just not that many people in Bitcoin. If you talk to people on the street, most people still think you are highly regarded if you are a Bitcoiner. They don't understand money. They're broke. They're complaining about things. So I think we are entering this early majority. Do I know where? No, not at all. But it does feel like we are in the early majority stage here, Nico. So anyways, first of all, Nico, touch on this. 50% of hedge fund managers personally own Bitcoin, but only 3% have allocated institutional funds, and then chat about where we are in the S-curve adoption.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I would never, I don't think we're in the early adopter phase anymore. Could you pull up the S-curve, please? I don't think we're in the early adopter phase anymore. Look, when the U.S. government is basically saying, we want to stack Bitcoin, and when Bitcoin's at 104,000, I don't think we're at the early adopter phase. I think the early adopter phase, you can argue, was between 2017 and 2024. And then what comes before early adopters? Innovators. I would say anyone before the 2017 era. You're definitely in the kind of innovator like curve. And then I think we're in the beginning. You see where that dotted line is, everybody, between early adopters and early majority. I think we're right there. We're on the cusp. And I think this thing's gonna just go crazy. And again, just laying it out, right? Pro Bitcoin administration, not only in the US, now in Poland. Absolute stellar performance of Bitcoin, of companies holding Bitcoin on Wall Street. And then, of course, the end of Operation Choke Point 2.0. the end of the kind of regulatory attacks on Bitcoin. And then the intention of the US government to acquire Bitcoin, not only on the federal level, but on the state level. You have the great state of New Hampshire and the great state of Texas just passed bills, ladies and gentlemen. Strategic Bitcoin reserves are happening. So yes, like this S curve is about to go effing bananas. And I agree with Larry Lepard. I mean, I think $7 million Bitcoin in 20 years is bearish, to be perfectly honest. I think his predictions in terms of 300 to 500,000 in the next 3 to 5 years, totally could see that. I think Bitcoin is going to blow everyone's minds by the end of Trump's term. That's what he promised. This administration just so pro Bitcoin. It's going to allow Bitcoin entrepreneurs to build unabated. And yeah, I think it's going to be crazy. That's my expectation. I know this cycle is a little bit slower than what everyone has anticipated. I think things are gonna start to pick up. I can't tell you when, though. I can't tell you when. Everyone's saying that by the end of the year, we're gonna have an explosive kind of cycle and this and this and that. But I've heard that before. It's just kind of wait and see. Like lower your time preference. I think Bitcoin's gonna surprise everybody. Opti.
All I heard is Nico being a bear still on the show. We got to kick the bears out of here. No more bears in the chat. No more bears in the chat.
I can't take you off screen anymore.
Yeah. Can I kick him off? Kick him out of here.
Oh, man. Anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed today's show, make sure to smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. I'm your host, Nikos. My legendary co-host, Optimus Fields. We're changing up the show, everybody. We're going to be doing it in person, live in the flesh. If you guys liked it, please drop us a comment. We've been working up towards this for a minute.
We got some secret sauce coming soon.
And we got something cooking that I think you guys are going to like. So again, smash the like button. Consider subscribing. Really, really helps when you guys support the show. Check out all our sponsors. They're Bitcoin companies. They're going to help you guys on your hodling journey. Love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.